see, that's why you got in trouble. You never went. That makes sense now. That makes total sense.
Today's telecommunications week, so we're trying to get these telecommunications figured out. We should be able to continue. Councilmember Scagliola is going to do a presentation of proclamation for National Public Safety Telecommunications Week. Dr. Scagliola, Mike's yours.
Who do I have joining me up here today? I thought it was kind of ironic that me and my flip phone were designated as providing the Telecommunications Week proclamation. But then again, the reason I got my flip phone was so I could call 911 in case of an emergency. So, National Public Safety Telecommunications Week. Whereas emergencies can occur at any time that require police, fire, or emergency medical services, and whereas when an emergency occurs, the prompt response of police officers, firefighters, and paramedics is crucial to the protection of life and preservation of property. And whereas the safety of our police officers and firefighters is dependent upon the quality and accuracy of information obtained from citizens who telephone the City of Schertz Emergency Communications Center, and whereas public safety telecommunicators are the first and most critical contact our citizens have with the emergency services, and whereas the Public Safety Telecommunicators Department has 16 employees, 1 communications manager with 18.5 years of experience, 4 communications supervisors with a combined 45 years of experience, and 11 communications officers with a combined total of 18 years of experience. And whereas the public safety telecommunications for the City of Schertz answered approximately 100,000 calls in 2022, from which 75,000 calls were for service for Schertz and Cibolo Police Department, Schertz EMS Department, and Schertz and Cibolo Fire Department. And whereas public safety telecommunicators are the single vital link for our police officers and firefighters by monitoring their activities by radio, providing them information, and ensuring their safety. And whereas public safety telecommunications of the City of Schertz have contributed substantially to your apprehension of criminals, suppression of fires, and treatment of patients. I'm getting there. And whereas each dispatcher has exhibited compassion, understanding, and professionalism during the performance of their job over this past year, therefore be it resolved that I, Councilmember Scagliola, on behalf of Ralph Gutierrez, Mayor of the City of Schertz, proclaims National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week, April 9th through the 15th. And we encourage all citizens to join us in honoring the men and women whose diligence and professionalism keep our city and our citizens safe. Thanks, everyone.
Okay, Megan, I left the fireworks at home. I just wanted to say it's another year that I'm honored to work with one of the most talented group of dispatchers for our city. They show up every day to answer the call of someone else's plea for help. With every call, they listen with compassion and empathy, ready to send the caller their best help. The skills, knowledge, and abilities that our public safety dispatchers possess to do their job are numerous, detailed, and wide-ranging. Our dispatchers must understand principles and details of communications, psychology, law enforcement, fire service, EMS, and technology. All of this is in addition to the ability to understand and work within a variety of sociological and cultural environments that are constantly evolving. They are never just a dispatcher. They are one of the most important people you will never see. To all my unseen heroes, I appreciate every ounce of yourself that you pour into this job. I see you and I thank you.
They truly are unseen heroes. When you dial 911, you never see their faces, but they're the ones on the opposite side of the phone when there's an emergency. And believe me, I had 2 of those in the past 4 months. And my gratitude and appreciation go out to them. 75,000 calls in this community in Schertz and Civil. That's quite a few. That's quite a bit of workload. And I can't say much for the work that they do. Thank you all. Our next proclamation is the National, excuse me, I don't have my glasses on. National Animal Care Control Appreciation Week. And Councilmember Haywood will be reading the proclamation.
For me, I'm honored to be able to read this proclamation, being on the Animal Advisory Committee and knowing how well they work really hard and they really, really love what they do and how they take care of the animals, and they just are a well-oiled machine, and I truly appreciate it. So I am the one that's honored to be able to read this tonight. National Animal Care and Control Appreciation Week, April 9th through the 15th, 2023. Whereas the National Animal Care and Control Association has designated the second full week in April as Animal Care and Control Appreciation Week. Whereas various federal, state, and local government officials throughout the country take this time to recognize, thank, and commend all animal control officers and animal service staff for their dedicated service they provide to the citizens, public safety, and domestic animals and livestock across the nation. And whereas the City of Schertz recognizes and commends the Schertz Animal Service personnel who answer calls for assistance, capture roaming and potentially dangerous animals, rescue animals, investigate reports of animal abuse, educate pet owners about responsible care, and mediate disputes between neighbors regarding pets. And whereas in 2022, the Schertz Animal Service responded to 2,206 calls for service and handled 1,130 animals for intake. And whereas the City of Schertz has a staff that included 1 animal service manager with 6.5 years experience, 3 animal service officers with a combined of 6 years experience, and 3 animal service technicians with a combined of 8.5 years of service. Whereas in 2022, the Schertz Animal Service completed several projects that improved the quality care with the renovation of the AAC HVAC system, installed gas heaters in the dog kennels, and completed the fencing project that fenced in the shelter. Whereas in 2022, the Schertz Animal Service Department developed a vision to have a special unit where they can care for neonatal animals, both domestic and wild. They have an entire room in full service dedicated to the care of infant animals. And whereas animal control officers provide essential community functions, including the enforcement of animal control laws, protecting the public from diseases such as rabies, and educating the public on proper care of the community pets. And now therefore, be it resolved, I, Councilwoman Allison Hayward, on behalf of Ralph Gutierrez, Mayor of the City of Schertz, proclaim National Animal Care and Control Week, April 9th through the 15th, 2023. We encourage all citizens to join me in thanking the City of Schertz Animal Services for their dedication and exceptional service they provide to all citizens and animals in our great community.
It's always hard to go after Nicole. Thank you all, Animal Services staff, they consistently uphold their level of service, their dedication, passion, hard work, and integrity, whether it be containing an aggressive animal, providing care for a critically injured animal, investigating animal cruelty, or resolving an animal-related public nuisance complaint. They will face the challenge head-on, practicing safety, good judgment, to ensure the safety of all humans and animals involved. Animal Services staff, again, handled 1,100 animals last year, and animal control officers responded to 2,200 calls for service. Animal services staff rescues hundreds of animals a year that are living in unhealthy and unsafe conditions, along with treating and preventing the spread of zoonotic and animal-borne diseases. And, I always say this, that teamwork is such an important core value within our organization. And truthfully, we would not be able to achieve our mission if it were not for our community. So thank you for allowing us to serve you. Our volunteers, our fellow city employees, our neighboring shelters, veterinarians, our department leadership and command staff, and the support and advocacy from our city council and city management. So thank you.
Well, it's interesting, about a couple months ago, we had over 100 cats at the animal shelter, if I'm not mistaken. How many do we have now?
We have lots of cats up for adoption. Close to 40. Yeah.
40. See, they do, it's a big impact, especially rehoming those lost pets, making sure they get back to their owners. Appreciate it so much. Thank you for all your work. We do have a couple of presentations. First, if I can have Nicole come up here, we have a special presentation. We talked about the importance of 911, and this one is a very, very special presentation. Ms. Nicole?
So as a part of Telecommunicators Week, we would like to recognize one of our telecommunicators for a superb job she did on February 7th of this year. Alicia Cepeda was working her normal shift when she received a call for a mother in active labor. While 911 operators are never aware of the calls they're about to receive, an active labor call is rare. Alicia has been with the department for 22 years, and this is her first active labor with a delivery over the phone. I'm going to play a small part of the call for you so you can share in the excitement that Alicia and family got to experience. And the recording has been significantly edited down.
911, what's your emergency?
Yes, I do. We have a subdivision. My wife is currently pregnant, and we're not going to make it to Banff. This is about a 30-minute drive, so we're kind of that. Are you able to send an ambulance?
I'm so excited. Hold on one second. How far along is she?
She's 38 weeks from training.
Okay, hold on.
Again?
Is she conscious and breathing?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes. Her water is broken.
when did it break?
I moved here earlier.
Mm-hmm.
We have the baby coming.
Right now?
Yes.
Oh, yay, okay. How old is your wife? Can you see any part of the baby now? Can you hear me?
Oh, the baby came.
The baby came out?
Yes.
Okay, alright. Hold on. Okay, listen, is there any complications? Can you still see the umbilical cord?
Yes.
Is the baby bleeding?
Yes, the baby's breathing.
The baby's bleeding? Okay. Hold on, stay on the line with me, don't hang up. Can you let him know that? The paramedics are on their way, okay? Hold on.
Okay.
Okay. Is the baby crying?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Okay, I want you to gently wipe off the baby's mouth and nose, okay?
Okay.
Dry the baby off with a clean towel or a cloth. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Once you clean the baby's face off, I want you to wrap the baby in a clean, dry towel, okay? You cover the baby's head, but not its face. Oh, I can hear the baby. Can you guys tell you the cord is not wrapped around its neck, right?
No.
Okay. Mama, I want you to keep the baby close to you so the baby stays warm, okay? We're going to tie the cord off. Now I want you to listen to me carefully. I'm going to tell you exactly how to do it, okay? Dad, are you listening to me? Because you're going to have to do this. You okay? Oh my goodness. Do we have a boy or a girl? I'm so excited for you guys. Did you see if it was a boy or a girl? Oh my goodness. It's a boy. It's a boy! Congratulations, I'm so happy for you guys. Thank you. Your sister, I said congratulations, I'm so happy for her. Thank you. Alright, good luck to
Thanks. Good job, Dad, Mom. That's very nerve-wracking. So tonight we are joined by the family, Mom Jasmine, Dad Giovanni, and baby Jonah. Tonight is the first time that Alicia has been able to meet the family. And at this time, EMS Mike Schoen would like to present Alicia with a certificate and a stork pin for the successful delivery of Jonah baby boy.
Indeed, what a special day, meeting the baby that she helped deliver. Thank you, thank you. We'll move on to our next presentation on Special Olympics of Texas, and our presenter is Kraft, and
There's no way I can follow that.
Chief Casas, Assistant Chief Casas, and Lieutenant Jones. Can you come please? Come up here, please. They didn't know about it.
First, I'd like to just say thank you all. I'm pretty loud, I don't know. So thank you everyone for just giving me this opportunity to highlight some of the wonderful things your community is doing for Special Olympics. So I am Katrina, the Law Enforcement Torture and Coordinator for Special Olympics, and I came to meet with these wonderful individuals, I believe it's like mid-November. And immediately they became like family to Special Olympics. They jumped in, and I don't even know they were prepared for how much they were going to be a part of Special Olympics, nor was I. But since day one, they have been amazing support. They've showed up to almost 5 events now. Started with the leadership conference up in Lake Wayne. We had our winter games, and Anna was here, a part of that as well. And then we had polar plunge, and this is part of what this is for. Let me just say, this woman is very competitive, and she made this city stand out. The community really rallied together, and I'm not going to mention names, but an officer from another department actually said, this woman is relentless, and he had to constantly one-up his game to try to be competitive with Schertz. So we had Schertz PD, Schertz Fire, so thank you all. Animal Services was there as well. So we had great representation from the city. That event raised over $17,500, and $4,515 was from the city of Schertz. So you guys are amazing, so thank you for that. Anna's contribution was almost half of that. So her efforts were great. So this is her incentive for raising all those funds. And this was something And our office wanted to highlight the city of Schertz, as well as the police department, just to say thank you so much for being a part of that event. It was a great event. We put it together within less than a month, and so it turned out amazing, and that's all because of your contributions and your help to Special Olympics. So they've been a part of Tip-A-Cop, I said Color Plunge, Tip-A-Cop, Fundamental Skills. They came out and presented awards to our athletes. We have spring games this Saturday and summer games in May. So they are part of our family very much now. And so I just wanted to present a plaque to say that they reached the gold level for our.
Thank you, Katrina. First and foremost, thank you to our community and thank you to our city council, because I know they put up a big fight and helped us with this. Now, next year though, we're going to start earlier. We're not going to tell the competing city about it, so we can get a head start on it. So, thank y'all. Thank you, Katrina. Thank you. I almost said the wrong title for Costas over here. And Lieutenant Jones, but thank y'all for helping with this. Thank you all.
All right, next we have milestone service pin presentations by our city manager, Mr. Williams.
Thank you, Mayor. This is one of my favorite things to do. These are milestone service presentations for our employees that have been with the city for a number of years. And it shows their dedication to our city and our citizens and our mission. And it always is a good feeling to be able to recognize them, especially out here for everybody to see. I like to do a little thing before we get started and place things in context. I'm not going to say the O word, but I'm going to say these are seasoned employees. So just to place things in context a little bit, I'd like to play a little game here. What was happening in January of 2003? Well, the #1 song was Beautiful by Christina Aguilar. The #1 movie was Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers. Of course, we had the Space Shuttle Columbia tragedy where it crashed over Texas. And the price of a gallon of gas was $1.40. But most importantly, we had two big events happen. The city of Schertz hired Carl Quast and Aaron Matlock. So first I'm going to call up Carl. We're going to talk about him a little bit. Oh, wait. That way? All right. We've got Carl. Come on up, Carl. So I've got a little bit of information about Carl here. Carl is our building inspector with the city, and he joined us in January of 2003 in the Public Works Department, and he later joined the building department in June of 2005. He was born in Houston, moved to Schertz area in the mid-90s. He's married to his lovely wife, Clarice, that I met earlier. And he's a devoted father to his son, Jeremy. He enjoys spending time with his family, all kinds of sports, especially football and America's team, the Dallas Cowboys, right? Okay. And is a big Joey Logano fan in NASCAR. He loves the outdoors, outdoor activity. He's an avid hunter and angler. And if you're looking for him on the first day of dove season, you're not going to find him because he's going to be out in the field. Congratulations, sir. No,
made it this far and this long, and it's been wonderful. It's been a good experience. I came in when the city was just getting started, and I've seen a lot of growth in Schertz and where it's gone and where it's going further on. So I'm proud to be a part of it, and for 20 years, I'm pleased. Thank you.
We hope to have you for 20 minutes. All right, now next we have Aaron Matlock. Come on up. You know, one thing we get to do is have lunch with our recipients, and I learned a lot about Aaron today. We have way more in common than I think a lot of people around here, and it was nice to get to know her better. But she started out in the finance department and worked in the water billings and entering information into Encode, which is the billing software. And then she moved over to the economic development department as our business retention and expansion analyst. And she worked very closely with the Schertz businesses in that regard. And now she has been with the Civic Center for quite a while and enjoys making relationships with our folks that come and use the Civic Center. Erin was born in San Antonio, but the best place ever, she really loved living in Alaska because her father was in the military and spent some time up there. After middle school, she moved back, and an interesting fact, when she came back from middle school, she had her first cafeteria meal and really loved it, even though everybody else hated it. So she has three children, and she's a proud nana to 8 grandchildren, and her oldest son is getting married in June of this year. She's married to her best friend and loves spending time with her family. Her dream job, and this is one of the things I learned because she knows more about sports than I do, her dream job would be to be a high school football coach. She loves to read, loves plants, the football season, and to watch her grandchildren play sports. Congratulations, Erin.
I didn't want to say anything. I just wanted to say when you love your job, you do not realize time just flies by. Thank you for the opportunity. I love it here, and I hope to see all of y'all. Thank you.
Well, and now for some of our a little bit more seasoned employees. What was happening in January of 1998? Well, the number one song was Candle in the Wind by Elton John. The price of a gallon of gas was $1.06. But more importantly, the city of Schertz hired Bruno Cepeda and Wes Daly. Why don't you come on up, Bruno? All right, so Bruno was hired in January of 1998. He oversees all the electrical, plumbing, and HVAC issues, and makes offices ready. He does security, hardware, carpentry, and oversees contractors on jobs that we bid out. He was born in Seguin, Texas in 1972, graduated from Seguin High School in 1998. In 1990, yeah, I was trying to help you out there. He's one of 3 siblings, older sister Rosemary and a younger brother Roman. He has 2 sons, Bruno and Joseph, and his hobbies are camping, working, driving his 57 Chevy. That sounds pretty cool. Loves barbecues and listening to oldies and spending time with his grandkids. Congratulations, Bruno. Congratulations, sir. I'm good. Together. All right, last but not least, we have Wes Daly. So his career with the city began, once again, in January 1998 in the Schertz Fire Department. He transferred to the EMS department in 2011, where he is currently a paramedic. He was born in Anchorage, Alaska, once again, because his father was in the military. He moved to Schertz in grade school and graduated from Clements High School. Did 2 years at Sul Ross University, and then after that, enlisted in the United States Marine Corps, traveled all over the world, and spent 2 years in the Far East, 3 years in Africa. He has one son who is 27 years old, and is a graduate of, let's see if they say it, Texas A&M? Okay, none of y'all out there? He's been married to his wife Tammy for over 10 years, and he's part of a very large family, and who is all involved in the community as well as the military. He loves to travel and is fortunate to have traveled all over the world. He enjoys scuba diving, mountain climbing, hiking, and sailing. And he's also a proud owner of one of the first houses ever built in Schertz, and it's been in his family since the late 1970s. So come on up, Wes, where are you? There you go. And would you like to say something?
I have a few words.
There you go.
Wow. How fortunate I am to have had such an amazing journey. Those of you that don't know me, the city manager hit some of the high points of it, but what I want you to know is that this is my hometown. I went to middle school here. I graduated from Clements High School. I enlisted in the United States Marine Corps, and I am a Marine. I've also had the honor and privilege of serving my community for over 25 years and being part of one of the greatest teams in our country, Team Schertz. I've seen us overcome floods, fires, attacks on our nation, pandemics, each time persevering these challenges and revitalizing our city to make it stronger than it was before. The truth is that we're more than a city, we're a family. We're a family that cares, not only about our team, but about our citizens, our surrounding communities, those who visit our city, and the men and women of our armed forces. I hear all the time about the energy and genius of our people, but the most important trait that we all have is love. Love is the greatest leadership trait we have. It runs through us. It is deep in our souls. It's the reason why we have prospered and achieved so much. Being part of the city of Schertz is more than just an honor or an obligation to us. To us, it's a tradition that everyone matters. We have always been willing to work hard for our community. We've been willing to give the best we can. We're thankful for working hard, and we stand for the American flag. We have always honored those that have came before us, and that's something to be proud of. Everybody that's 30 years or younger, if you're 30 years old or younger, if you don't mind, or are you, raise your hand. If you're 30 years or younger, raise your hand. Actually, if you're 30 years or younger, do me a favor. Stand up. Please stand up. Please stand up. If you're under 30 years old, you all are the reason why we're here. You are the heartbeat of our community. You're the ones that will be faced with more and more challenging and difficult challenges than we've ever been faced before. You are the ones that are important to us. I can only hope that I'm as good of a mentor as the mentors I had before me. They were always there for me. They taught me right from wrong. They taught me honor, courage, commitment. They taught me to be confident. And then if I was lost or scared, they were there for me to guide me with love and patience. We are all family. I can promise you this, if you stand by somebody at Schertz, you will never stand alone. Thank you, y'all can say. I would like everyone to know that I am glad to have the city of Schertz in my title. And until my last breath, I will always be proud to be Schertz strong. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor and Council.
You working? Test, test. Test, test. Thank you to our city staff for your years, the number of years of commitment to servicing our citizens and our community. Thank you so much. We'll move on to city events and announcements and upcoming city events. Mr. James.
Thank you, Mayor. This Saturday, or coming up Saturday, April 22nd, not this Saturday, is the Education in the Park. That's 10 a.m. to 12 p.m., and that's at Crescent Bend Nature Center. Also on April 22nd, JVSA Fort Sam is having an open house. That's from 12 p.m. to 9:30 p.m. for the public to do that. And our next council meeting is April 25th, 6 p.m. Fingers crossed in council chambers.
Thank you, Mr. James. We'll move on to announcements and recognition to our city manager, Mr. Williams.
Thank you, Mayor. We did have one promotion this month, and it was Chad Lonsberry, promoted from HVAC technician to facilities manager. We all know he'll do an excellent job in that role. A couple of other announcements. The Hal Baldwin scholarship applications are due at the end of this month on the 28th. And the Lions Club held Easter in the Park, which was a huge success. And several hundred children come out for the Easter egg hunt. The Junior High and High School Fire Academy is June 5th through 9th. So if you're interested in doing that, please get your applications in today. There's more information on our website and our Facebook page. Also, the Love Where You Live group has an event coming up on the 22nd of April, and they're going to meet at the Rock Point Church. There's more information once again on the webpage, and they'll be doing yard work, fence painting, minor repairs, etc. That's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Announcements and recognitions by the mayor. I forgot to mention that if you're here for the Hal Baldwin Scholarship, you're required to sign in at the sheet that was located in the back. If you have any questions, please contact Ms. Gonzalez at sgonzalez@schertz.com. So we'll move on to the hearing of residents. This time is set aside for any person who wishes to address the city council. Each person is required to fill out the registration form. And for the record, you must state your name and address, and 3 minutes will be allotted. Mayor Pro Tem, please call our first speaker.
Maggie Tidrington.
Good evening, Council. Maggie Titterington, 1730 Schertz Parkway. A lot of things going on at the Chamber. Just wanted to give you some updates. We had our Shred Day on April 1st at the Schertz offices. In 3 hours, we did 400 cars, and this was a free event, but we asked for a $5 donation for your boxes of papers, and after expenses, Hyper raised $2,000 to donate to Operation Comfort from a free event. So thank you to the awesome citizens of Schertz that came out and supported this event so that we can do this check presentation next Tuesday at our Chamber luncheon. Also, we have several ribbon cuttings coming up tomorrow, as a matter of fact, at the Schertz offices at 1730 Schertz Parkway, 10 a.m. We're welcoming New York Life, Joey Menchie, and that's at 10 a.m., as I said. April 19th, Alamo Title, which is right off of IH-35, that is 4 p.m. ribbon cutting. We also have a business education class at Cross Point Fellowship Church, right there off of FM 3009, 8 to 11. And the topic is finding, recruiting, and retaining quality staff. Anybody is free to attend this. You just have to register online. There is breakfast offered, and J2 Leadership will be the one presenting this. Also, just a couple of updates about our Chamber offices is on starting May 1st, we will be changing our hours from 9 to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday to 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. Monday through Friday. We also are welcoming a new employee, Lauren Dalton, who is our new special events coordinator. She'll be taking Carmel Terrell's place, who was as an interim helping us get through that 10-month niche in between special events. And sadly, I'm announcing the departure of Carol Lovelady, our membership services team member, after 5.5 years of dedication. She has got a wonderful new job opportunity that she's going to be stepping into on May 1st. So on April 28th, which is our Coffee with the Chamber, it'll be at our Selma office location, 7:30 to 9. Please stop by and say your best wishes to her. Also 1 to 5 at the offices at 1730 Schertz Parkway. She'll be there finishing out her last day. Very sad to see her go, but she did such an awesome job helping our chamber get to the level that it is with its membership that we hope y'all can come out and give her your well wishes. That's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
Next up, Graham Wright.
Good evening, Graham Wright, 1308 Arroyo Loma, in the Arroyo Verde subdivision. The reason why I'm standing before you is I'm also the Secretary Treasury for our HOA that's there, and we have a bit of concerns regarding the I-35 dedicated transmission line, which is supposed to be built right next to a number of our homes that are in our homeowners association. The number one issue that we have is that the information that we've received to date seems to be incomplete regarding the land that the city is requesting to purchase. The plot that they've indicated on that information it does not match what we show that we have ownership over. So we have some issues regarding that. The other issues we have is that this dedicated transmission line, if we did sell this land to the city, is going to run right next to a number of homes, about 9 homes that are on the easterly end of the creek there. And it's also, believe it or not, it's going to run right next to my home on the west side. But we're not against the city bringing water to the growth of the city, but we are having a problem with the fact that we've asked for a number of times for the city to meet with us as a homeowner association to explain to us what the purpose of this dedicated transmission line is more fully. We did meet with a Mr. Fredsma, I believe, from the group that you contracted for the land acquisition. He did take us through some of this. They did show us the trees in the green belt that are going to be removed. Unfortunately, that green belt is something that we hold very near and dear to our hearts because it actually separates us from the large amount of traffic on 3009, and it's getting more and more and more every day. So with that, we just really would like to have someone from the city to reach out to us, to meet with us, so that we can have a little bit more information, so that we can then go to our homeowners and let them know what's about to happen back there. And also get their vote and they're okay to do this. We're only 5-member board, but we've got over 100 homes in there, and that's going to affect this community greatly. And so we need to also let them know what's going on This seems very rushed to us, even though you've been planning it for a long time. The information that we've received has only been over the past couple of months. And when we initially found out about this, we found out about it through a newspaper article instead of the city coming to the HOA and talking to us about what is about to happen. We've had a very strenuous relationship, unfortunately, with the city in the past, especially with regards to the creek that runs there along Arroyo Verde as you come into the subdivision, right behind where the Anchor Bar is now and that shopping center. That creek has been widened out. It has unfortunately caused some damage to some of the HOA property that we've had. We've talked to the city about that, about getting repaired. To date, some of it is still not been repaired, dealing with irrigation systems. And also that creek, from my understanding, we used to own that entire greenbelt all the way up to the road. And the strenuous part of this with a lot of the homeowners that have talked to me is that some of that land, they kind of got strong-armed to give that to the city for the expansion of the creek. So there's a lot of bad feelings with that. I don't want any more bad feelings for the homeowners associated and the homeowners there. We want to work together with the city. We want to find a reasonable solution. We just want to know what's about to happen and also get the proper documentation for the land sale. So that if we do go through this and it is voted for, that we're doing it in the right way and with transparency to all of the homeowners that are there. I thank you for your time, and I look forward to hearing from somebody from the city. Thank you.
Thank you.
Miss Gina Torres.
Oh, I'm sorry. That was me. I was just signing. I was just signing in. I thought it was a sign-in sheet. I apologize. I'm just here with Alamo next for the I-35.
Okay.
Sorry.
Thank you. No problem. Okay, Dr. Miguel Vasquez.
Good evening, City Manager Williams, Mayor Gutierrez, and City Council. My name is Dr. Miguel Vasquez, and I'm here on behalf of the Schertz Historical Preservation Committee. The reason for that is because later on in this session, you may be hearing from city staff about discontinuing and abandoning this particular committee. So the Preservation Committee has been part of the city for the last 16 years. And over the last 16 years, we published 2 books. One is a kind of a historical book, the other one kind of a coffee table pictorial book. We've written several articles that are called Remembrances, and you'll find those on the city website. We established a sister city relationship with Rheinland, Germany, which was a place where many of the original immigrants from Germany came to Schertz. We also have several historical photographs which are displayed at various locations, including the Guadalupe County offices on 78. The First United Bank lobby, they underwent a renovation and they asked us to get some photographs for them, and they've got them displayed in their lobby as well as in some of their offices. Also 2 hotels and 2 restaurants. And of course the reason for that is we don't have really a central location for that sort of thing, such as a museum. Okay, so also during this time we've recognized over 30 landmarks within the city that have historical significance, and we've recognized 7 historical cemeteries and designated them as historic ancestral resting places. So most recently we completed our 2nd annual antique car show, which occurred in October, and right now we've been working on 2 projects which will be coming up and completing by next month. So we've been collaborating with the Schertz Cemetery in anticipation of National Historic Preservation Month, which will be next month. And the cemetery will have some guided tours and also featuring the Clemens Brass Band, the so-called Bison Band. And speaking of Clemens High School, at the behest of school officials and school board members, they have applied for landmark status as well. So the students have completed their research. They put out an article. We want to get that article into the Schertz magazine before they graduate in May. So there is still much to be done for the benefit of Schertz. We do not agree with staff that this committee should be dissolved and basically abandoned. So, thank you.
And Ms. Barbara Hall.
I am Barbara Hall from the Schertz Historical Preservation Committee as well. Current members of the Historic Preservation Committee have been very busy preparing an agenda of activities. We have a brief list of activities that I'd like to share with you. Number 1, plans for proclamation to declare the month of May as National Preservation Month in the city of Schertz on May the 2nd here in the council chambers. To recognize the National Preservation Month, the committee plans a tour of the oldest cemetery, which Dr. Miguel had just talked to you about. And incidentally, it will have a historical marker from the Texas Historical Commission installed later this year. The committee is working with the History Club at the high school for the 50-year landmark designation of the high school. This committee has connected with the family of the original owner of the high school property, and they have agreed to supply us with photos and documentation of that property. We are collaborating with the city of Castroville, known for its Alsatian ancestry, connected with the city of Schertz and the Schertz family. We are looking to sponsor seminars and workshops to educate the citizens of Schertz in historic preservation and restoration. This committee has been extended an invitation from the Old Spanish Trail Association to celebrate 100-year reenactment of the trail in the Guadalupe and Bexar County location. The Old Spanish Trail originated in Florida around the early 1900s and traveled through the southern states. The highway was constructed on what is now 78 through Schertz. The Old Spanish Trail ends in San Diego, California. We are working on that seriously. Current programs are in process will remain, i.e., the history notes in the Schertz magazine and upcoming current publications. This committee believes it should not be disbanded. Thank you.
And Mayor, that's all for tonight.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. All right, we'll move on to consent agenda items. These items are considered self-explanatory, and information packets have been provided to council. There is no separate discussion on these items unless requested by council. Council, do any of these need to be pulled for separate action? All right, let's go ahead and pull, we're going to item number 1, minutes. Consideration or action approving the regular meeting minutes of April 4th, 2023. Item number 2, appointment, reappointment for boards, commissions, and committees. The appointment of Mr. Richard Devitz, excuse me, I'm out of time, to the SSLGC Board of Directors. The reappointment of Mayor Ralph Gutierrez, Mayor Pro Tem Tim Brown, Councilmember Davis, and Councilmember Allison Hayward to the Main Street Committee. Council, is there a motion to approve items 1 and 2?
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made by Councilmember Hayward and second by Councilmember Dalla. Council, any other comments? Let's go ahead and call for the vote.
Aye.
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 We have 7 ayes, no objection, motion passes. We'll move on to discussion items. Item number 3, resolution number 23R36. Consideration or action by the City Council of the City of Schertz, Texas, approving a resolution authorizing the extraterritorial jurisdiction agreement with the City of Santa Clara to release 4.8 acres of the City of Schertz extraterritorial jurisdiction, ETJ. Ms. Delgado, the floor is yours.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. This is for resolution number 23R36, an ETJ agreement with City of Santa Clara, Emily Delgado, Planning Manager. So a little bit of background, the City of Schertz was approached by Chesmar Homes, LLC, which purchased Guadalupe County Property ID 61495, which I'll show you in a couple of slides, located approximately 4,000 feet southwest of Green Valley Road and Marion Road. The entire property is 68.22 acres, but only 4.8, the rear 4.8 of the property is within the City of Schertz ETJ. The rest of it is already within Santa Clara's ETJ. Chesmar Homes, as part of their purchase, has requested that the City of Schertz release that 4.8 acres of our ETJ. That way, City of Santa Clara could expand their ETJ, so they're only developing in one regulation rather than 2 jurisdictions. So once we got the request from Chesmar Homes, planning did have conversations with the City of Santa Clara and drafted an agreement. That agreement would, if approved tonight, would authorize the city manager to sign and execute that ETJ agreement, which would then stipulate that the City of Santa Clara immediately expand their ETJ to incorporate that 4.8 acres. On February 27th, Santa Clara did meet with their city council, and that agreement has been approved and has been authorized for Mayor Jeff Hunt to enter into that ETJ agreement with Schertz pending tonight's approval. So the subject property here is shown in green. It's 4.8 acres. You can see kind of the long rectangle there is the full property that was purchased by Chesmar Homes. It's currently undeveloped. It's within Green Valley SUD CCN for water and sewer, so it would not be serviced by the City of Schertz for water and sewer if it were to be annexed at some point. And then the map here, the one on the left, you can see the property is kind of that blue area, just the little sliver there, the 4.8 acres. And you can see the closest property that's actually within the City of Schertz is approximately 7,000 feet as you travel within that red area there. And then again, just more zoomed in on the 4.8 acres. So staff is recommending approval of resolution number 23R36 to authorize the city manager to enter into that ETJ agreement. It would release the 4.8 acres, so Chesmar Homes would all be within the City of Santa Clara, so they're under one jurisdiction. And then Mr. Buck Benson is here as a representative of the applicant if there's any questions about the development as well.
Thank you, Ms. Delgado. Okay, council, floor is open for discussion. Councilmember Scagliola.
I didn't mean to lead off the discussion. I was just tapping my screen there, but okay.
I just saw the pen.
You know, we haven't, we usually when we give up part of our ETJ is because some other entity wants to annex it to be part of their city. In this neck of the woods, we did so with New Braunfels. Almost immediately upon giving the property over, they became the city of New Braunfels. One of the problems I have along this stretch of the woods is it starts out in Cibolo along Green Valley Road, then goes into Santa Clara. Problems with ETJs is the city has absolutely no jurisdiction over what is built or how it is built. Counties don't have that authority. Only cities do. Releasing this piece of property, from what I read, Santa Clara will not be incorporating them into their city. Santa Clara will have absolutely no right to provide the regulations of the houses that are being built there. And in stark contrast, take a ride down Green Valley Road, and you can see the properties that are in the city of Cibolo. Right next door to that, there are properties in the county. Stark contrast. My guess is this is going to be similar to the houses that are being built there. I'm not in favor of that. I don't agree with giving up our ETJ. The city of Schertz had to fight hard to get every square inch of property we have. We're landlocked now, except for our ETJs out there. Yeah, this is only 4.8 acres, but then again, it's the principle that matters most to me. That's all I have, sir.
Councilmember Whitaker.
I would say in contrast, I think it's a fine idea. The developer's gonna develop that land. It's all gonna be the same, whether it's in our ETJ or their ETJ, it's gonna look the same. It makes sense to be a little bit more simplified for their purposes. I don't see how us retaining it is gonna change. As he pointed out, we have no jurisdiction over it, so whatever they're gonna do on that land is gonna happen, I think in either ETJ, so I would be in favor of it. I don't see a problem with it.
Councilmember Dahl?
So I would agree with Councilwoman Whitaker on that, you know, with it being in the Green Valley SUD, that will never provide services to it. The bulk of that property is in the other city. It's just, there's nothing that we're ever gonna do with it, and if they have an opportunity to do something with it, whether they annex it immediately or whether they wait a few years, is probably the best track for that property to go down. And so I would support that. And Mayor, I'll make a motion that we approve Resolution 23R36.
Second.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch who made that second. Was it Councilmember Brown? Okay. Mayor Pro Tem? Okay. Council, any other comments?
Mayor, if you please, do we have a development agreement on this portion of our ETJ? Okay, thank you.
Council, any other comments? Motion's been made by Councilmember Dalla, second by Mayor Pro Tem Brown. Any other comments? Let's go ahead and call for the vote.
Aye.
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 We have 7 ayes, no objection, motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we'll move on to resolution, item number 4, resolution number 23R37. Consideration or action by the City Council of the City of Schertz, Texas, approving a revision resolution setting the first Monday on or after the first day of spring each year as Employee Remembrance Day. Ms. Simmons, you have the floor.
Yes, good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Cindy Simmons, and I'm the Administrative Assistant for the City Management Office. Tonight, we are bringing forth resolution number 23R37 regarding the designation of the Employee Remembrance Day. This is an update to resolution number 96-R-7 that was established in 1996, setting the first day of spring each year as Employee Remembrance Day. Both resolutions are included in your packet, and the highlighted sections in resolution 23R37 represent the proposed administrative updates, which better reflect how we observe the program today. We recommend approval of this resolution, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Ms. Simmons. Okay, Council, floor is open for discussion. No comments? Is there a motion to approve resolution number 23R37?
So moved. Second.
Okay, who made the motion? Councilmember Whitaker made the motion. Second by Councilmember Hayward. All right. Council, any other comments? Let's go ahead and call for the vote.
Aye.
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 We have 7 ayes, no objection, motion
Okay,
passes.
thank you so
Ms.
much.
Simmons. All right, we'll move on to, we have 2 workshops. The first one is IH35 Expansion Project Text Dot Presentation.
All right, good evening, Council. First off, just want to thank the City of Schertz for inviting us out to give an update on the I-35 Northeast Expansion, or NEX project as we refer to it. This evening's update is going to be kind of a 2-part presentation. My name is Daniel Warden. I'm the project manager from TxDOT, and then also with me I've got Eric DeVera. He's one of the deputy segment managers for Alamo NEX construction. So I'm going to touch a little bit more higher level, kind of give a project overview, talk a little bit about the history of the project, and then give some of the benefits of the project. And then Eric's going to kind of dig a little bit more into the actual ongoing and upcoming construction on the project. And then we'll have a question and answer at the end. All right, so location of the project, as you can see, this project does cover 3 counties within our region, Bexar, Guadalupe, and Comal County. So I'm going to kind of describe the project as what we call our NEX program. and then I'm going to kind of break it down into what have been broken out as more manageable projects. So the full program of projects begins down on the south end, down around Walter Street. It continues up to the north. It includes direct connectors at the 410 South interchange. Continuing up to the north, it includes 4 more direct connectors at the 410 North interchange. Then some long linear construction up until you get to Loop 1604. And as you can notice, it does include 4 direct connectors to the west. The scope of this project does not include direct connectors to the east. We recognize that is a priority, but that's going to have to be done as a separate project. And then construction continues up to the north through the Schertz area and ends up at FM 1103 in Comal County. Oops, wrong way. Okay, just to give a little history on the project. This project, I'm not going to read through all of this, but this project has been on the books for quite some time now. It started prior to 2013 as a Pell study. We got the need and purpose, and we started on some of the right-of-way impacts, analyzing some of those right-of-way impacts at that time. Fast forward to 2015, there was a full-blown schematic environmental effort that was done on the project. It was actually cleared as a toll project at that time, and we began right-of-way acquisition as soon as we got environmental clearance. So then in 2019, we had a environmental assessment reevaluation. Basically, it removed the toll component. So just want to be abundantly clear, this is not a toll project. We did some more traffic studies, determined that we needed to add an additional lane in each direction. And that EA reevaluation was approved back in September of 2019. So the need and the purpose of the project, this comes directly out of the NEPA document. So this project is going to improve safety and mobility. It's going to address the anticipated increase in traffic growth. It's going to reduce the travel time for the drivers, and it's going to service regional traffic. And I've got some more slides that kind of touch on each of these points here in a little bit. Okay, so some of the details of the project. This is an added capacity project. We're adding 3 additional lanes in each direction. So as you can see from the exhibit, we'll be adding 2 what we call general purpose or free lanes, and 1 HOV lane in each direction. And as you can see, that added capacity will be built as elevated lanes, kind of between the existing main lanes and the existing frontage roads. One important thing that I want to touch on is that a majority of the existing infrastructure, the existing main lanes, existing frontage roads, ramps, and cross streets are going to stay relatively as they are today, and these elevated lanes are just going to be added as another level. Also, these elevated lanes are going to serve regional traffic. I've got another slide that kind of touches on that, but it's going to be very limited access to these elevated lanes. Okay, so now to kind of describe the HOV lanes a little bit. They're reserved for carpools, buses, motorcycles, and emergency response. The HOVs, they reduce congestion, they promote that mass transit, they improve the safety of the roadway by reducing the congestion, and then they establish that corridor reliability, because that HOV lane is very rarely ever at capacity, so you've kind of got that reliable travel time along the corridor. All right, so this map, I want to touch on a few things on this map. First off, it kind of breaks down how the project has been segmented, starting kind of up at the north from FM 1103 down to FM 3009 is what we call the North Project. Then we have the Central Project, which is in the red color, from 3009 down to the 410 North Interchange. That's a project that's currently under contract, currently under construction, and Eric's going to get into the details of that here in just a minute. And then also we have the South Project, which is from the 410 North Interchange all the way down to the southern terminus of the project. And this project has it's not confusing enough, it's been broken down into more segments on the south project. The pink is a design build, and then the green and the orange, phase 2 and phase 3 are both the traditional design bid build delivery methods. Also on this graphic, I want to point out the little yellow circles with the bridge cross-section inside of them are where traffic can access these elevated lanes. So as you can see, along a roughly 20-mile corridor, we have very limited access. We don't have your typical 1 to 2 mile access points that you typically see on a freeway. So once you get up on these elevated lanes, you're basically really not going to be able to get off of them until you get to kind of one of the major interchanges. Also want to point out the little white boxes with the arrows that kind of go perpendicular to the roadway. Those are emergency service crossovers. So those are bridges that are going to be built kind of to connect the northbound and southbound elevated lanes, and those are for emergency services. They'll be gated so that the general public cannot access them. They'll be operated remotely, and emergency services will be able to either turn around or access the other direction, whatever the case may be. All right, so now to talk a little bit about the traffic. So I'm just going to talk in the southbound direction. Northbound direction is very similar. So currently in the southbound direction on the I-35 main lanes, we have roughly 97,000 vehicles per day and roughly 27,000 vehicles per day on the frontage roads. So fast forward to when this project is put into service, we're looking at a decrease in the main lane traffic from 97,000 down to roughly 82,000. And then the frontage road traffic increases very slightly. But I do want to point out 40,000 vehicles per day will be utilizing these elevated lanes. So when these are put into service, roughly a third of the existing traffic on I-35 is going to be utilizing those elevated lanes. So that tells you that's more of that regional type traffic. Okay, so now to the travel time savings, or why are we doing the project? So this is also talking in the southbound direction. So if you're traveling from the 3009 area all the way down to Walter Street, kind of in the peak hour, you're looking at roughly a 29-minute commute right now. So fast forward to when these elevated lanes are put into service, that same commute, you're looking at roughly a 17-minute commute via the existing at-grade main lanes, and you're looking at roughly a 15.5-minute commute via the elevated lanes. So you're looking at anywhere from a 41 to a 48% travel time improvement. Okay, so I'm going to turn over to Eric to kind of dig into the central project.
Good evening, everyone, council members. Thank you again for hosting us so that we could share some of the information on the project that we are currently doing at the I-35 NEX Central Project. As it details, our project limits right now are on the south end, the 410 and I-35 connector. It's being constructed through the 1604 interchange, and it's terminating right now at FM 3009, which is right in your community. The joint venture is a design-build team comprised of Ferrovial Construction and Weber LLC, two major entities here in the Texas market that have many projects ongoing throughout the entire state. Design has started in the summer of 2021, and the construction began last summer in June 2022. We anticipate to complete the project late 2027, so it translates to roughly 6.5 years of construction and at a total cost of $1.5 billion, so quite a large project. To provide you some information on the design, build, delivery, so it's a little untraditional in what you guys are used to. It's one of the first ones down here in these districts. But the benefits that this type of delivery system brings is a very streamlined process. Typically, the information is set well in advance from third-party designers and stakeholders, Now with the control being in the hands of the joint venture itself, we're very much in control of the entire flow of information. That allows us to basically approach any hurdles or design obstacles that we would have dynamically, immediately, and look to come up with innovative solutions to be able to construct what we need to do at a much quicker basis. This ultimately reduces the cost in the project schedule, which is something that everybody wants, obviously. Ultimately, it also allows for the input of the construction team's practice. These types of projects, rely on experience from individuals from all across the world. If you haven't been able to tell, I'm actually from Canada, if you couldn't tell by my goofy accent. So. But no, we come from all around the world, and we're able to pull from that experience and endeavors from many facets and essentially come up with very clever situations to the challenges that we face. So just to give a brief overview here on what's been going on. So construction is very much started basically at the two interchanges. If you drive those areas, you'll see that the project is well underway. Last summer, we implemented the numerous traffic control measures. Typically, they're just the realignments of the main lane and the frontage road, which allow the work platform for the construction, the bridge elements to be constructed. And so at the 1604, you can see pylons 1, 2, and 3 there. All that area is under the traffic control measure and construction has started. So we have drill shafts and columns and bend caps, which I will show you pictures of momentarily. And that's true moving south all the way to the 410 interchange. We have the traffic control measures in place and construction is ongoing. Just to be super specific, it is in the southbound direction that we're prioritizing first, with the northbound to follow shortly this year. Here's just a picture of a typical drill shaft construction. So the foundation of these elevated lanes are on very large drill shafts. These ones are typically about 96 inches in diameter, so very massive. We pay special notice just of the close proximity of traffic. Building these types of projects very close to the existing traffic results in close proximity with construction and the public. So it's just an interesting challenge that we have to face on a daily basis, but it makes for some interesting dynamics. After the drill shafts, we obviously complete the columns as the next element. The picture on the right is a typical aesthetic design for the area. It's called the Hill Country theme and probably will be replicated throughout the majority of the projects here. And then the final element here for the substructure after the columns is what we call the bend caps. And so these are the elements that hold the superstructure, the girders, and the deck. And these are currently being completed now. It's a big milestone for us. We, as I said, it kind of triggers the completion of what we call the substructure and the commencement of the superstructure, girders and decks, which is obviously very visually pleasing and obvious to the public. So it kind of looks more complete from a structure standpoint. As with all construction projects, there's some situations that we need to be prepared for. We do our best to proactively anticipate these and have the materials and resources necessary to correct any of the issues that arise. Not specific to construction itself, but just general traffic, as you see in the top left side, with traffic accidents, attenuators, barriers, guide rails. We need to always be ready to reinstate those protection measures for the safety of the public, so we always have those resources on hand. With the new traffic alignments, we also changed the loading patterns on the existing infrastructure, and sometimes that the different loading patterns with the different alignment gives way to some cracking or some potholes on the existing pavement structures. So we'll dynamically address those and make sure that they're repaired accordingly, so to not damage public vehicles or cause accidents. And in doing so, usually that requires some nighttime construction measures, which is pretty standard for this type of close proximity construction measures. One final thing with thousands of employees, millions of man hours to construct this type of work. There's a lot of materials, a lot of people, so just general housekeeping is something that we take pride in and try to keep very clean, especially when we're being welcomed by the counties and the cities to build these infrastructures in your guys' communities. So we look to take this seriously. One interesting note that we have to interact with is sometimes there's homelessness and individuals who will navigate their way onto the project. And so we work directly with TxDOT and police forces to help ensure their protection and safety. A couple extra little details here. Because of the massive amount of critical information for these types of bridges, the design package specifically is broken down into many components. The project itself is 4 segments, and each segment has its own design capacity, which is broken through many disciplines. So, I mean, just rough numbers, 580 design packages with tens of thousands of sheets of information for this type of project, absolutely massive. For bridge decks and basic information, we have nearly 6 million square feet to construct, the equivalent of 126 football fields. Very large for these types of projects. With the drill shafts that I was talking about before, we have roughly 1,500 to construct at an average depth of 50 feet. So as again, they're quite large, and as a result, that'll translate into roughly 1,100 bridge columns with an average height of 40 feet. Over the interchanges, those will be a little bit larger, as we have to span over the existing infrastructure. So we'll have some pretty impressive structure elements that reach 60, 70 feet in height. Lastly, with the superstructure items, so with all of the beams that we need to put in place, the majority of them are concrete beams. We have roughly just over 600,000 feet of girders to install. That's the equivalent distance between San Antonio and Corpus Christi. And in order to construct all of those, we have several suppliers working from several areas to be able to deliver those products through our project schedule. Through the more complicated spans, we have the steel beams. You need a little bit of a more robust system, and typically you'll see those over the interchanges, so 1604, 410, and any of the additional interchanges that are in the other projects. You'll typically see those steel spans. I think I passed it over. I might have pushed the wrong button. I apologize there. Oh, there you go. I'm pretty sure that was my last slide.
Okay, well, there was supposed to be one more slide. Oh, there it goes. That's going through all of them. There we go, perfect. Landed right on. All right, so just a timeline, kind of a looking back and then kind of a forward-facing timeline. Like I said, this project has really been on the books for quite some time. We've gotten a lot done, but we've got a lot more to do to get this project to completion. So we're sitting here in 2023. We've already awarded the central project, as Eric talked about. The South Phase 1 Design Build project. It's going to be executed later this year, probably sometime around August of this year. Also, the Phase 2 and the Phase 3 Design Bid Build projects, kind of those 2 tail-end projects on the south. Those are going to go to letting probably sometime 2024. And then the North Design Bid Build project will go to letting sometime in 2025. So needless to say, there's going to be a lot of activity going on from 1103 down to Walter Street. A lot of coordination that's going to go on. And it's very optimistic, but we are planning to open all projects open to traffic by the 2028, 2029 timeframe. All right, so this is just a slide with some really good information, some resources for the project. We've also got some fact sheets in the back, I believe. We've got some of our public information folks here. Kind of the whole point of this is to be as transparent as possible, to keep y'all updated on the project. We anticipate many more of these types of conversations, as we progress through construction. We've always thought that the city of Schertz, they've always been good partners with us, and we look forward to continuing that partnership throughout the life of the project. So with that, we'll open it up to questions or comments.
Well, first of all, thank you. Thank you for providing the overview as to where we're at in this project. When we I first came on board as the city council, and he says it's a 10-year project, but I thought 10 years would start when the first pillar went in. But apparently, we're way ahead of that. It's in a very aggressive schedule. 2028 for everything to be completed. We're talking about 5 years from now that you guys will be completed with the whole project. It's amazing. I mean, that pillar didn't go in a year ago. Only a couple months, and I already see so many pillars going up. But I appreciate it. I'll open it up to council questions. Mayor Pro Tem Brown?
Well, first of all, I just want to say thank you all for continuing to come out. You guys got a great communication program. Your public information is really outstanding on this. I mean, I'm almost spammed with the amount of information I get every week, via email and internet and whatnot. And I know where the website is, and I know that there's going to be inconveniences for everybody along the way, but I think you're doing a wonderful job of getting the information out. It's just for us and the public to take a couple minutes every week and take a look at what's going to be open, closed, and rerouted for a while. But again, great job, guys. Thanks.
Thank you.
Councilmember Dahl.
Yeah, just kind of echoing what Mayor Pro Tem Brown said. Thanks for being here. Thank you for the communication. It really helps when people have questions to have that available. And the only other real, I guess, kind of question I have for you is, can you show me how I can make that drive in 29 minutes? Because I can never make that in 29 minutes.
May not be during the actual peak hour, but it could be an aggressive driver too. So. Good adjustment.
Councilmember Hager.
Thank you again for being out here. This was, I think, well needed, and then the residents that will watch this video later will see what's going on. And again, echoing with Mayor Pro Tem, you guys are very on top of communication and letting us know what's going on. And I just want to say, those pictures don't do justice to the pillars. When I drive by them, I'm almost like want to stop and just look at them. They're just so nice. They're not your typical kind of boring, dull columns. And I'm anxious when I drive that way to see the difference in when it starts and then when it gets to the next section. So you guys are really moving, and to know that it's just recently been in the ground and how fast you're going. And I truly appreciate it to know that, in time, we will get there and we'll be able to get those drive times down. I'm one of those aggressive drivers that like to get there, so I try to leave at different times to figure out when I need to leave. But thank you again, and I truly appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you.
Council, any other comments? Once again, thank you for the update. Appreciate all the work y'all have done, and I can't wait to see it completed. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the kind words. We look forward to working with y'all throughout the project. Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to item number 6, discussion regarding the Schertz Historical Preservation Committee workshop. Mr. James.
So again, as get this down, agenda item says, and as Dr. Vasquez and Barbara Hall talked about, I think one of the things, what staff wants to talk to you tonight is the future of the Schertz Historic Preservation Committee. As noted, it's been around a long time. It's been around since 2006. Kind of had an initial mission that was scheduled for, or that was set for it when it was created. And it has done a lot over the years, and certainly continues to do a lot in the community. That being said, however, I think one of the things that many of us have noted is the significant amount of turnover among members of the Historic Preservation Advisory Committee, and how that impacts their mission and what they do. And I think the staff looked at it, and as we had some conversations sort of about it, one of the things that we noted is the SHPC is a little bit different than our other boards and commissions. So if you think about it, Animal Care Services Advisory Board, the Board of Adjustment, the Building and Standards Commission, the Capital Improvements Advisory Committee, EDC, P&Z, the TERS Board, all have a specific mission outlined for them, even TSAC, in the city ordinances or in state law. So So they have a very defined focus of the things that they work on. In most of those cases, the work sort of comes to them, if you will. There are these things that they have to review and approve. It comes up and moves forward. We have a couple others that have a less clear mission, if you will. Library Advisory Board, for example, and the Parks and Recreation Board. Now, a couple of things about the two of them, though. The Library Advisory Board and the Parks Board both offer recommendations about the department's operations they specifically relate to, the library and Parks and Recreation. And one of the things with the Library Advisory Board, as you know, is the members are a little bit different there. They're expected to work in the bookstore, and so part of their mission is to staff the bookstore, which raises funds for additional expanded programs. The Historic Preservation Committee is, again, a little bit different than those other boards and commissions. And so, as you know, the city of Schertz doesn't impose historic regulations. So we don't have a defined historic district where there are rules and regulations that say, before you can make changes to that structure or changes of a certain type, you have to come to the city and you have to go before that design review board or that historic preservation committee and seek approval. And so many of the cities that have a historic committee or a design review board, it's because they regulate what can be done to those structures or structures within that historic district. We, as a policy matter in Schertz, have chosen not to go that route. We've done grant programs and assistance programs. We continue to tweak those and modify them going forward. And what we've really done is try to encourage people and help them understand some of the benefits of historic preservation and things like that. But one of the issues, though, I think that happens is because the Historic Preservation Committee doesn't have that clear focus, their focus and their mission and their view can shift over time. And as staff has kind of looked at it and thought about it, what we tend to find is that focus tends to shift based on the membership of the committee. So, for example, many of you know Dean Wertz. For a long time, much of the Historic Committee's history, he chaired that committee. I would say Dean was really involved in writing about the history of the community. So the quarterly newsletters and remembrance articles, Dean had a really kind of heavy hand in that. Again, putting together one of those books, and even the second Dean had a very significant heavy hand in that. That was just his passion. He also went over to Riedestein and helped with the Sister City project, and we'd get reports and updates of his visits on that. And so again, Dean was kind of a long-standing member. A lot of the focus, I think, tended to be things that were of interest to him. The other board members certainly participated on that and kind of went forward. Again, as an example, as Dean's role sort of shifted, we had other members come on, the focus shifted. The historic car show, for example, was something a couple of the members were passionate about, and they moved into that. Again, all of that is perfectly fine, all of these things that sort of were done. But again, what I would say is what the committee focused on over time sort of ebbed and flowed. And from a staff perspective, that was often because of the interest of the committee members. But again, one of the things that sort of hurt is I think that the structure of being an official city board or commission, you have to follow certain procedures and rules. And so, for example, council appoints the folks on the historic committee. And having sat on some of those committee reviews in the past, we would have folks that say, I just want to participate and support the city. And at times we'd need members for historic committee. They would get appointed to it, and I think maybe would find out this really wasn't for them. It wasn't what they had an interest in. And it wasn't just the historic committee alone. They might get on PSAC and say, this just isn't what I'm interested in, move off. But I think that turnover both hurt the continuity and the sustainability of the committee. And just by way of example, when I kind of looked up to see when we had resignations come before council, and there are 14 member spots on the board, and they've modified that fairly recently within the last few months, but there were 7 resignations in 2021, there were 10 resignations in 2022, and there have been 4 so far. 3 have made their way to you in 2023. And so one of the challenges is that when council then gets volunteers and you appoint folks to it, they may have a different interest with regard to historic preservation or the focus than the majority of members on the committee have. And so I think a little bit you get a bit of push and pull of people wanting to do one thing, nobody else on the committee is necessarily interested in that, which is fine. but it means this person's interest isn't sort of met and they may kind of step away from it. And so I think staff's thought was that because of the lack of a direct mission from the city, that the committee might actually do better not as an official city board or commission. And there are certainly other historic societies out there. The San Antonio Conservation Society, it's not an official city board or commission. And what that does is that lets them select their own members and agree on the roles those members play. They can, frankly, accept people or not accept people who have a consistent agreement with the view and mission and focus of the board or commission. Again, if they want a working board or commission where, look, we need everybody here doing some of the heavy lifting, they can certainly set those standards and say, if you're not going to do the heavy lifting, you're welcome to kind of maybe sit in on our meetings, but we don't really, you're not adding a whole lot of value to being on the board or the committee, if you will. As opposed to the way it works is folks can show up, they can really help with that stuff or not help with that stuff going forward. Now, again, I think what staff is looking for is to continue the focus on promoting the history of the community. I think our kind of feeling is that they may better be able to do that, not having to comply with the constraints and not having necessarily the process for designation of members as a city board or commission. Now, when we talked to the committee members about it, and certainly, and I don't want to put words in their mouth, but one of the things was the financial support that the city provides. And so I don't think staff is looking to abandon them. I think there are certainly projects that they might work on that they can approach council, and generally I think my assumption is council would be willing to help fund those things much as you do today. So for example, one of the things that we've talked about at the committee meetings for quite a while is to edit the yellow book on Schertz history, to update it, and then to reprint it. I would think that if the folks on this group came forward and said, this is something we'd like to help fund and the city would like to be a part of that and help publish that to promote our history, likely council would agree to help fund that as you would now. The same things in terms of support for various events and programs and things like that we do with some others. Now to be clear, I think there also is an expectation though on the part of council at times with how we help fund these groups that we may help supplement the funding as you do with a number of other organizations, but you really need to sort of stand on your own and have fundraising as part of that. And if there's not really the community support to help do that, then kind of why is the city doing all the carrying the water on that, if you will? So I think there certainly are some things to work out. But again, at this point, we're down to 6 members out of the 14. I think, and it could be wrong, but I think 5 of those members were appointed in 2022. One's been on quite a while, 6, 7, 8 years, something like that. But it's again indicative of, I think, a fair amount of the turnover going forward that I think staff feels like if they weren't necessarily a city board or commission and they were able to kind of organize themselves better, whether it's a nonprofit, a 501c3 or an informal group, and they can focus on the things they want. They can certainly, for example, meet at the library in the community meeting room. I think we'd be happy to have them do that. It becomes a little easier for them to do that in terms of calling meetings, getting together, doing things, and being more productive. So in fact, I think staff's recommendation, while it's again, they are not in favor of it, I think we view it as a way for them to actually become more productive and become happier a little bit in their role as opposed to struggle maybe the way that we feel they have. So with that, I'll answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. James. Okay, council questions. Councilmember Whitaker.
Well, not so much a question, but as I am the liaison to the committee, I thought I would kind of chime in as well and just give my thoughts on it. So I think Mr. James made some really good points and some things. I mean, we've been talking about this for a little while, and I think one of the hardest things is the lack of focus for the group, and that it is able to kind of be fluid with the members coming and going, and we've seen that over time where one group of people leaves and their passion leaves with them, and then the group that's left is left with well, what do we want to do now? And they have a charter, with bylaws. Their bylaws clearly state items that they're supposed to be working on. But again, as there's no one really saying you have to do that, whatever happens at the meetings is, you know, the focus of their efforts. So, so I think that's a problem. Also the fact that they, you know, like as you pointed out, they don't have any impact on regulations, or they don't approve anything. It's just, I wanted to be the liaison to the Historical Preservation Committee because I really thought it would be, it's a great concept, but in seeing it in practicality, it's a little bit more challenging than the idea I had in my head of what it was gonna look like. One of the things I thought was very interesting tonight, we had 2 members who spoke during hearing of residents, and I know that the people that are remaining on the committee are extremely passionate about history. They love it, they're excited about it, but the question is whether or not this is the right format for them to be working that for the city of Schertz. And so one of the things I noticed is that a couple of things that were mentioned as things that they were working on, being Spanish Trail and talking about sponsoring classes. Those sound like really great ideas, and they have never come up in a committee meeting once since I've been there in a year. So I think that illustrates Brian's point in that the format of the meetings are not conducive to them sharing ideas and kind of hashing it out and whatever. And again, we're down to 6 people, so it comes down to like, well, you know, what does this person want to do? And this person, we spent the majority of the last year talking about editing the books, and that wasn't mentioned tonight. And those are very, you know, I have a copy of the Yellow Book. I read it, I like it. I think it'd be great to update, not update, you can't update history, but you know, clean it up a little bit, add to it. There's value there, but I don't think that's anybody's priority, it sounds like, you know, from what's been presented tonight. So I think now we're shifting yet again. We just spent the last year talking about how many books do we have, how much is it gonna take to reprint, should we edit it? And then that whole year's worth of discussion is now moved on to other, you know, well-meaning projects, but different. And so I would agree that the format seems not, again, it's great in concept. I don't think in practicality for a city committee, I don't think it works out well.
Councilmember Hager.
So with that said, with the other boards and commissions, they typically have a staff member that kind of helps guide them through the process. Historical Society?
They do as well. And so I am and Cindy are the staff that help support them. But maybe if I may, if you will. So when it comes time to set the agenda for, say, TSAC, staff sets that based on the emails and the inquiries we've got, the things that have come up at past board meetings. We kind of click through and there's a role and there's a focus. Planning and Zoning Commission, staff sets that based on development applications that come through in process. We have not traditionally, staff has not set that agenda. It's been the chair of the committee because again, there isn't sort of a defined role. So while we know what is talked about the prior meeting and we can look at putting it on the agenda, it's kind of this issue of if staff were to say, what do you want to do? It's kind of up to the committee. And so for example, trying to provide that staff support, what I have kind of recommended over the last year is you guys need to pick like 2 things, just 2 things, because there are a lot of great ideas, right? But those great ideas stretch us too thin, and focus on those 2 things. And so if that's the car show, doing the car show, then do the car show, it takes a fair amount of time. And again, as we've talked about, it's editing the book. But again, that seems to not, and not to say I'm right in that, not to say that's the be-all end-all, but again, we tend to sort of go through a lot of different items. And so, for example, staff will get inquiries from board members about showing a movie at the library. It's not been discussed at the historic committee, and so we kind of work on that, try to get information with it. To echo Councilmember Wigger's point, we'll talk about one thing, literally at one meeting, we'll talk about, okay, we're not gonna do this anymore, this is not part of our focus. And then 15 minutes later in the meeting, we come up with, hey, we wanna talk about doing this thing again. And so again, I think part of the thing that this is different, to answer your question, is they don't have that clearly defined role where staff can help set the agenda and put things on the agenda, and there are things that come to them. It's really up to them what they want to do and what they want to focus. And so the chair has typically created the agenda in the past.
So I'm kind of the thought process. It keeps, with all the turnover, and I think that a lot of times when we have seats for boards and commissions and they're filled or somebody can't fit that spot, we kind of throw them over to historical or say, hey, would you like historical? They say yes, they go to one meeting, they don't come back. And so we're not getting people that seem to be really the ones that's interested in history, because they're not putting their name on the list for history, they're putting their name for something else. And then they don't get to something else, and then we say, hey, well, we have this opening, and they go there. And then you have maybe like 2 people, so 20% of the people doing 80% of the work, and they're not getting people that are driven with that history in mind. So I'm kind of inclined to go with what you're saying is, if they are independent of the city, then they can pick the members, and then they can go forward. And as a city, we can always give them assistance, and then they can be more formal or informal because they're not following certain rules that the city they have to follow with being a city organization. So I kind of am thinking that way because of the huge turnover and knowing that how some people end up on that board and they're not really into the history, or they thought that because Schertz, technically we were a city in the 1800s or 1900s, but then we didn't incorporate till 60-something years ago, so we don't have the history that some other cities would have. So then they were a little bit confused on, okay, so what are we actually doing? And I've had that from a couple of people that were on there. And then when they were doing articles, not everybody wanted to write an article. And so I think it's just a difficult thing to do. And I know that as a city, you don't always want to get rid of things. You try to keep things and find a way to make it happen, but sometimes you just have to make that tough decision, and it's a hard decision to make.
Yeah, and I will say this, because I think it's hard not to come off that way. I don't think from sort of my perspective or Cindy's perspective, we're getting rid of it.
Right.
I think it's shift the structure of it. But yeah, our expectation is we're happy to, again, meet with them, see what we can do to help support them, kind of provide some of that guidance and assistance. But I want to be clear, at some point the heavy lifting has to be done by the committee and the community. But this is not just, you're done, go away. Again, our recommendation was, and we can assist them and do this, create a 501c3, a nonprofit. Ironically, one of the members at the meeting when we talked about it said, I'm not sure that frankly if we did that, there would be enough support to continue that. That's fine. Maybe that structure is more than they need. An informal group that gets together and talks about their focus and does things like that may work. So.
Councilmember Dodd.
So I kind of mixed feelings on this a little bit. When being on the interview committee, Councilwoman Hayward kind of alluded to that a little bit. I think some of the turnover issues that we're seeing is the fault of the interview committee and by extension council, is that whenever we filled up all the applicants for all the other boards and commissions, what do we have left, and how many warm bodies can we give an opportunity to help out somewhere? And we, by default, probably appointed a lot of people to the commission that probably really didn't have a lot of interest, but they didn't want to say no. You're talking about the defined role, and I don't know the current chair, but I know previously, the previous chairs, Dean and Frenchie, there we go. They were pretty strong leaders, and they could keep it focused and directed, and there probably wasn't a lot of need for staff to help them with that. Again, I don't know the current chair, if that's the case or not, but and maybe I think we just got ourselves in a place where we're just kind of complacent and letting them kind of do their own thing, and now that they're at a point where they're struggling, that the ability for us to help them is somewhat challenged by the constraints we have to deal with.
Yeah, I think so. And a couple of things I'll kind of offer with that, and I appreciate the candor in terms of the committee and who we appoint. One aspect of that, though, is it's not as though we had 10 people applying to serve on 6 vacancies in that committee, and who are those strongest candidates, we struggled to get people to want to serve on that committee. And again, I think that may be the formal structure, it may be kind of how we operate sort of going forward. And I think that's, again, a little bit of a reason that if a lot of the focus of the committee is based on the leadership and who those core people that are willing to do the heavy lifting are, and that makes sense to me, then to some degree, I'm not sure that, again, being a city board or commission and having to take the appointees through whatever process really helps. And so one example I used is, in my opinion, I could be wrong, but the committee a couple years ago decided they wanted to do a historic car show. And in my opinion, and I could be wrong, that was because Frenchie and Pete Perez had a real strong love of this. And you had some other people on the memory committee go, that seems like a cool thing to me. Yeah, let's go do it, right? And they wanted to do it. But you certainly had folks on the committee who had a very strong view against that, who said, why are we doing a car show where we've got a really cool Corvette, you know, that's 15 years old? What's kind of historic about that? Why a car show versus something else? And so one of the challenges is, I think the committee is inclined not to do the car show going forward, which is fine. But your next round of interviews, you may get a couple people saying, I want to be on the historic committee because I went out to that car show and that is great. And I want to help put that thing on again. And their answer is, yeah, they're not really, that's not really what they want to do anymore. I think that's a little bit of how the city structure makes it a challenge.
And that's you kind of jumped in front there, but yeah, what we got going on now obviously is not working, and it doesn't make sense to keep doing the same thing that we've always been doing, just simply because we've been doing it for 15 years. And we definitely need to explore a different way of how we're doing the historical committee. You know, the current way is not working. You know, the option that we're presenting here may be, maybe not, I don't know. But I think, you know, when we have something that's not working, we have to be willing to acknowledge that. We have to figure out a better way to do it.
Mayor Pro Tem Brown.
What I would hate to see is that we lose the dedication and passion of the people that are involved in it. All right? And you know, this is a matter of restructuring an administrative construct, if you will, and if we could codify, whatever the word is, you know, true city support for this on a regular basis, you know, then, you know, I can see maybe, you know, dismantling the way that it's called a committee now, call it something else, but in essence, you know, the folks that are passionate about this, you know, but because there's no city that's agenda that says, okay, in March we look at this, and in June we look at that, and in April we look at that, whatever. You know, it's kind of a self-generated program all the way around, and we've had great success, absolutely wonderful efforts out there, and I can certainly hear from your voices that there's really good ideas come, you know, for the future. So I hate to lose any of that by any means, you know. And you know, if we're gonna just change the construct from a committee to a historical group, you know, we have to make sure that we provide true city support there. I'm not saying that we've got to give them a staff person. They can come to, you know, they can send their requests up to the staff and they can work on it. But we don't need to send a staff person on. We certainly need to, you know, give them all the, you know, functional support that we can to keep this going, and so you don't lose that effort that's already been produced. You know, the details of the car show, you know, I don't know how all that panned out. I know that it was well received, but at the same time, I realized that that's a project that doesn't really match our, you know, 1865. The cemetery thing is much more of a historical event, if you will, you know, and maybe that could be turned into a longer term project, you know, because there's more than one. But anyways, I want to say thank you to the people that have been on it and continue to provide that energy and passion and whatnot. And whatever we end up doing, I want to make sure that the city is fully in support of those efforts, so that, you know, when they do come up with something, that we don't just brush them off as, oh, the folks meet at the library, you know.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. So let me give an example. You know, one of the things that if they wanted to do again is edit the book, re-edit, provide an update in terms of what happened since its last publication. You know, I think certainly staff has experienced hunting down publishers, and we could help them with that, as we've kind of done before. We've looked at some things when they consider a calendar. I think you're exactly right. This is not staff saying that we're done, wash our hands, don't call us anymore. I think what we're saying is that if you don't have to follow this more rigid structure, we think you can in fact produce more, and staff maybe will get more calls, that we can provide assistance and support and things like that to help them with their mission, with that flexibility, more of a partnership, if you will.
I hope the independence allows them to blossom some more.
Councilmember Scargiola.
Yeah, you're gonna hear from the old guy on the council. Being a part of the city adds some legitimacy to any group, organization. I believe that contact is essential for historic society. You know, one of the basic premises or principles of management is don't create vacuums. Something's gonna fill it, and you may not like what fills it, or maybe nothing at all will fill it. You don't go around eliminating functions unless you have something specifically in mind to replace that function with. There was a reason for that, the Historic Society. I sat on the liaison for the board when it first got started. We were losing so much of our history in the city. Where was it going? I was really, really fortunate. I got to meet Mrs. Schertz. It was a necessary idea at the time to start the historic committee. And we were kind of fortunate that we had an individual who loved history, wanted to do the research. We had a number of individuals who really saw the benefit of highlighting the history of Schertz, Texas, going all the way back. It's France, by the way, not Germany. But if you read the book,
no, I understand. It's kind of gone back and
out.
forth. Dean would educate me on that.
So, you know, the thing is, okay, back then they didn't get their museum. They put it on the ballot, made it a ballot initiative. You know what? That same year, I think the ball fields were put on the ballot, and that was also disproved. Well, we got ball fields now. You know, maybe it's time, as we're redesigning Main Street, to find a place for the museum. Right now, the kind of sorta use the Kramer House as a de facto pseudo museum, where a lot of the history of the city is on display. I don't recommend we disband anything, okay? Once you disband it, it's so hard to get it recreated again. And for what it's worth, creating a 501c3, that would place an unnecessary burden on the members of the committee. You have to have a lot of background on a lot of things if you sit in a 501c3. Essentially, if you went down that road, the committee would be disbanded. There'd be no going back to it. As I said, being a part of the city adds some legitimacy to any board or commission. Yeah, as far as being a committee that really isn't like other committees, well, yeah, that's true. They aren't trying to define history. They're not trying to move forward with history, which would be, okay, make your head spin. They're recognizing the history of Schertz that exists. Okay, so maybe we we need to get back to the basics. Maybe we need to define what the real purpose of the historic committee is. And we got it in writing, I'm pretty sure we do. Let's stick to the plan. And as far as getting people on the historic committee, we've had pushes before where it says, hey, you know, we have a need on the library board. Who wants to be on the library board? And the responses sometimes were overwhelming. How about if we actually push to get more people on the historical committee and specify, okay, this is what the charter is, this is what it stands for, this is what we do, let's move in this direction. And then embrace that as opposed to trying something that maybe is but isn't. We have something that is right now. How about if we move forward with that? And you know what, come 6 months from now, if it's not working, all right, fine. But I'm not willing to just let it go off in some direction. Is it veering off into some direction that well, there's a cure for that. You bring it back into focus. And that's my take on it. It is so easy to do away with something, and it's so very difficult to recreate after it's gone.
I agree with you, Councilman. So let me give you an example. I know all of you enjoyed reading the articles that the committee wrote for Schertz magazine. And all of you enjoyed reading the quarterly special newsletter and remembrances. How many did you read last year? There are only 2 put out. So again, it's something the committee has moved away from. That was sort of the core mission of the committee, was writing those things. So we can certainly get back to our core mission of writing those things. The challenge is if the committee members don't want to write them, we would take submissions from council members and write them, staff could write them, right? But I think that's a little bit of the challenge that we've got, is if the interest of the folks on the committee isn't writing those articles, then we can't really get back to that core mission that for years we did, because there's just not the interest in it. And so again, I would agree that there has to be a strong passion for it, but because on this committee, it's the members doing the heavy lifting, that's how we've done it, they have to have that interest and passion. So if you look at, I'll use Councilman Dowie as an example, the amount of reading you do that goes to the Planning and Zoning Committee, it's all written by staff. It's all written staff reports, and you read pages and pages of things like that. But staff hasn't been writing the articles. Now again, if your desire would be that staff does that, writes those articles, and the committee looks them over and reviews them, that's certainly a way to go. But again, that's a shift in the mission. That's not getting back to basics, if you will.
You know, on the website, you know, you have right in there, it doesn't say this is our mission, but, you know, the city historical place designation, archive collection, church and cemetery designation, community outreach, which is education, historical museum development, you know, make it more than a hope and a wish. Schertz Historical Research Project, it's an ongoing, that's the ongoing, started with the yellow book, moved into the quarterly newsletter.
Picture book and quarterly newsletter, yep.
So, I mean, it's kind of, without saying this is our mission, it kind of says this is what we do, you know, right there.
Right.
Councilmember Higley.
I guess I wanted to clarify when I said disband. I wanted to continue to be a group, like at the city, you know, working with the city. I wasn't saying completely get rid of it, but giving them the support that they need, because maybe as a group, they can reach out to people that they know to become part of the group. But if we use Dr. Scagliola's process, then they need to be bringing us people that can be put on a committee and not the interview committee just kind of putting people on there. And the question will become, if it's only 6, have they reached out to people that they know that could be part of this committee to help them do what the process is?
And to their credit, I will say in the past, the committee members have gone out and encouraged people and got them there. Again, it was, I think the Jubilee, maybe this past year, that one of the members set up a table and sat there and promoted the Historic Committee as a way to do that. Yeah, so to their credit, they have done that.
We just
My
don't
response is, we just don't get a whole lot of people still interested in it.
Because-
I think that.
And that's my concern, because history is important, and if you lose it and don't have it, then years down the road, when someone says, oh, I think maybe, and it's the story that keeps changing because nobody documented it, I mean, that's.
Yeah, I mean,
so-
again, things
so
that we've
I-
talked about, if I may, in the past, is we've talked about sort of an oral history project, right? As you mentioned, these people who are older in our community who have so much, you know, to tell, sitting down and just recording them for a half hour as you ask them a few questions about the community. Even the folks who were up here earlier tonight, who've worked at the city for 25 years, imagine the stories about how EMS has changed and grown. That's something we've talked about, but it's never kind of come off with it. You know, it's just not been an interest to the folks. We've talked about a podcast. It's not necessarily been of interest. We've talked about, you know, the box in the ground. The time capsule. Yeah, we talked about that. You know, it's a lot of good ideas. It's just been a struggle to kind of move them forward again. I think it's the interest of the committee too.
And so I just want to clarify that, because I'm not saying they need to be gone. That is not my stance on the historical committee. I'm just going, if we see that it's not working the way it is, then we need to change the direction of how it's working and allow them to maybe figure out how it needs to work. I mean, when I say work, I mean, it's sort of like, they don't have an agenda. They have to give you the agenda. The staff doesn't put the agenda together. And as a group, like you have some of the conservative societies and historical societies in other cities that are not part of the city, but yet they kind of partner with the city to do the things, and at the city, we can still help them along.
Yeah,
So that's kind
again,
of where my focus is, because if you got 14, you're supposed to have 14 members, and you got 8 vacancies, and people aren't running to this. I mean, and some of people, I think they just, when we're the type of city that we are, and a lot of people come here, they've not lived here, they've not been here for, 40, 50, 60 years. Some of them just don't get history, or they look at the city and go, oh, there's not a lot of history, because they don't see a lot of the old buildings or things that way.
Yeah, so for example, our new resident packet, right? New resident shows up, they want to open a utility billing account for their water account. Great to give them a packet that has something written in there. Welcome to Schertz. Let me tell you in 4 pages the history of the community. That seems worthwhile. It takes somebody to write that though.
Right.
And so again, the staff could do that. We could go write that if you wanted it. But again, as I said, if the committee is not interested in writing, then I'm not sure how I'd push that.
Yeah, because if that was one of the things that was a focus, and if we're not dealing with the focus, then maybe the focus needs to change, or the type of group needs to change. Instead of it can be partnered with the city as opposed to a board with the city.
Yeah.
Councilmember Whitaker.
So, I mean, all great comments, and I agree with the concept of, I think if it were to move forward under the umbrella of the city, I would be in favor of that, but only if we kind of start over with a new council says, what do you want? I mean, like I said, I wanted to be the liaison because I care about history, and I was excited about learning more about it and seeing what we were really doing to emphasize the history of the city of Schertz and make it keep that, small town feel by celebrating the history. If we want to keep doing that, I think two things. We do need to be a little bit more specific about what their roles and responsibilities are, and then we need to hold them to that. And so simultaneously, as the chairperson of the interview committee, it would be really helpful to have that direction, because during an interview, you could say to the person, here's the Historical Preservation Committee, and this is what they do. They write 4 pamphlets a year, and they are in the process of editing this book, and then one other thing, or whatever it is that we decide. Are you interested in doing that? Yes, okay, then you would be a good fit for this. Right now, what we say on the interview committee is, are you interested in history? Yeah, I mean, who's not interested in history? But like you said, there's the practical application of doing the work. And, to be fair, the staff has never complained, and I know they never would, but it is a lot of, it's time spent in the evenings with the meetings and that if it's for no purpose or there's no fruit coming of that labor, I don't want it to keep continuing. So I would say revise the whole thing, get rid of the current bylaws, change it so that there's more direction from council and staff on what their roles and responsibilities are, and then hold them to that. Because I can tell you at the meetings, Mr. James is very good about kind of steering the direction back to what's on the bylaws, and but there's only so much you can do if the way it's written now is that they have the freedom to do what they want, they set their own agenda. I just don't think that format is working at all. So either a much more controlled type of committee that is more guided by staff, or a separate entity from the city that we support, and they have much more freedom. So I think that's the option, is like, do you want a lot of freedom, or do you want very little freedom? I think either one can work. We probably just need to decide which one works best for our city.
Councilmember Dunn.
So I would agree with one of Dr. Scaglioli's comments that, this is one of those things that if it goes away, it's going to be really, really hard to get it going again. But I still think that, somehow we need to look at doing something different. I know from my time on P&Z that, we had our charter, and we amended it, and it kind of became a template, and it's a generic charter for all the boards and commissions. And so maybe a good first step is that we go back and we have some meetings with the commission, and we create a charter for them, working with them to clearly define what the roles are and give it an opportunity to move forward. Maybe that means they have the autonomy to appoint their own members, and not have to go through the application process. And we can try that for a while. And like Dr. Scaglioli said, in 6 months, if it's not working, then let's go from there.
No, they're all interesting comments that were made here. And I know that the historical committee thinks that we're abandoning them, and we're not. We're not. The question is that when you fall under the city guidelines, there's certain rules, procedures, interviews, all that has to be in line with what we have with the other committees. And we certainly, they have made great contributions to our city. There's several interesting points that they said that were brought up here. One of the things I was considering or thought about is, suspending our city rules and procedures for this committee. This way we as a city step away from it. They allowed to run the board as they see fit. They appoint new members as they see fit, and then we can come back and see whether or not it's still working for them, at what level we could come in also. So dissolving it is probably not the way this council wants to go, but suspending our involvement might be something that that will work. It redefine their purpose.
I think it might have to be done by resolution that we suspend our involvement and let them be the board they need to be with our help at a certain level. Not that we'll be there to support them, but we don't need to set up the agenda for them. We need to see exactly where the city needs to come in and help them. I think that would work for both the city staff, because we see our city staff. We have two here for their meetings. And this way we won't have to be part of the meetings. We provide the venue, but we don't have to be part of it. And I think the suspension will provide that flexibility for them to do and see whether or not they do need the city support or whether or not they don't. Yes, is Councilmember Davis?
Yeah, I've been listening to everybody's comments. I'm kind of torn on this one. But after listening to everything and doing some other looking here real quick, and this isn't on the agenda for action tonight, this is just a workshop. No, I'm not too sure that creating, I understand the staff's concerns. This is kind of an odd one where, like you said, we don't have any historical guidelines, we don't have any restrictions. And looking at the City of San Antonio Conservation Society and how they're orchestrated and how they're set up, they, as a nonprofit, they own property. They have corporate sponsors. They have various trusts that sponsor them. And I even look at my own hometown. My hometown goes back to the 1700s. And it's a nonprofit historical society that represents the city and the county up there. So looking at this, I'm not convinced that it might not be a bad idea to change the structure of this and say, look, if there's an interest in this, why not explore, first of all, what all it would take to branch this off as its own entity, and then what could the staff do, what could the city do to help facilitate that? Whether it's an initial cash donation to cover the 501 filing fees and everything like that, finding out from the existing board members and some other folks in the community, is there an interest in serving on the board of directors and as an officer? I mean, obviously everyone I've looked at, both San Antonio and my original hometown up in Pennsylvania.
And what town is that, if I may, for the record? What town is that, if I may?
That is the city of Pottsville.
Thank you.
Rich in history, to include the United States' oldest brewery and a former NFL football team, the Pottsville Maroons. It was also the home place of Phillips Van Heusen before they moved away. So, but all of these places have a place to operate out of. And I think one of the unfortunate events that has occurred was back, as several members alluded to before, when we did the bond and nobody wanted to look at a building that could be used as a, let's say, operating center, museum, someplace to collect these artifacts and display them. And to me, if the city is serious about this, regardless of whether it stays a committee that's monitored by the staff or whether it's a standalone entity, I think that's a key piece that we have to address. The city purchased the Kramer House, and it's being used by the Chamber of Commerce. I don't see why we can't look for some structure. I mean, we have a structure up on the hill that we use for training next to the water tower.
We did, yeah.
I think it would be better to have this conversation with the existing, a straight up conversation with the existing committee and staff as council members and say, okay, where should this go? But I think part of it is regardless of how it works out, I think it's going to be more effective if they have a home. And I think that's got to be part of our discussion as to what options are out there. Does the city have an existing facility that we can create this? I know they've got artwork down in the county building. We've had artwork in some of our city buildings and stuff like that. But is there a dedicated place that we could establish as the Historical Society, the Preservation Society, whether you want to call it a museum or not. I think there might be some options on Main Street, there might be some other options around here, but I think we need to find that big picture to tie it together. And then again, I at this point, I kind of think that if we can find a home for this type of entity, then I think that the end result might be, or the best option may be, to create it as a nonprofit and let them have their own avenue going forward that the city can certainly participate in with things like our art installation projects and a few other things that are going on there. You know, providing the plaques and the monuments for something that is designated, republishing the yellow book, things like that.
Well, there's a split decision as to direction we want to go in. So, Mayor Pro Tem Brown.
Yeah, not to drag things out, but number one, I don't think tonight is the night to make a long-term decision by any means. But unfortunately Maggie's left, but I think there may be a resource there with the chamber as well to help get some assistance for the for a committee, a historical preservation committee, because I mean that they run 5, 6, 7 different committees anyway that aren't part of the city. That do certain functions within the chamber, and I'm not trying to volunteer the chamber to do this, but use that as a resource to maybe help get some more interest and build some other outside support.
When's our next meeting?
So it'd be in a couple weeks. So again, if the direction of council is not necessarily to decide anything now, that certainly makes sense. You want to think about it. Staff will continue as we are with the historic committee, with the 6 members, the appointments, and we'll keep going forward as is until we hear direction otherwise then. So again, it sounds like I think staff has the direction we need, which is to continue as we are at this point with the committee.
Councilmember Don?
If they're meeting in a couple of weeks, I would love to hear from the historical commission after their meeting, as to what they think the way forward is from their perspective. And let's continue that discussion.
Councilmember Scaglione.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'm a big fan of management by objective. Let's find out where we're going and how we're going to get there. Some people think I'm a bit of a critic because I love Nietzsche. When you see something falling, sometimes you need to give it a push. That's true in many respects. The corollary to that is, you need kindling to start a bonfire. Start small, get bigger. And that's a more optimistic approach. That's the approach I'm advocating tonight.
I think some of the council members will be attending the Historical Preservation Committee meeting so that they can get more perspective from it.
Okay, should we plan to post that then as a council quorum at that meeting? Is that the idea?
I would go ahead and post it.
Okay.
Quorum just in case.
So we'll do that. Again, just a couple things, and again, you got it in the letter, so one of the action items will be to elect a chair and a vice chair. Certainly what I heard tonight is to revisit the bylaws. I think council just approved amendments to those in January, I believe. I don't know if there are new rumors, but we can revisit that. And then again, have an item on for action on the Clemens, the application has come in. And then again, discussion about their mission and focus going forward. We can put it, but otherwise staff will plan to continue to support them as is going forward.
Thank you, Mr. James.
Thank you.
All right, we have roll call confirmation. Our Deputy City Secretary, Ms. Courtney, will provide roll call confirmation on consent agenda items 1 and 2 and discussion items 3 and 4. Ms. Courtney?
Good evening, Mayor and Council, Mr. Williams. Sheree Kearney, Deputy City Secretary, and the roll call confirmation for consent agenda items number 1 and 2. Motion was made by Councilmember Hayward, seconded by Councilmember Dalla. All council members voted yes. Motion passed 7-0. For discussion and action item resolution 23R36. Motion was made by Councilmember Gala, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Brown. All council members voted yes. Motion passed 7-0. For Resolution 23R37 and the Employee Remembrance Day, the motion was made by Councilmember Whitaker, seconded by Councilmember Hayward. All members voted yes. Motion passed 7-0.
Thank you, Ms. Courtney. All right, we'll move on. We'll move on to request information items be placed on, for information from council. Any information that is requested from staff? Okay, then we move on to any items that you'd like to place on the future agenda. All right, announcements by council members. Mayor Pro Tem Brown.
Nothing tonight.
Councilmember Davis.
Nothing tonight, sir.
Councilmember Watson.
Nothing at this.
Councilmember Whitaker.
Nothing, thank you.
Councilmember Dalla.
Nothing tonight.
Councilmember Scagliola.
Yeah, let me mention again the Lions Club at the Easter in the Park. It was a tremendous event. I'd like to thank the city staff for all their support in that endeavor.
Councilmember Hayward.
Yes, I came in and took the photo for the Child Abuse Prevention and Awareness Month that they did on Friday. And then I listened to a Zoom or a webinar for preparing for ICS. That's all.
Okay, the time is now 8:28. We stand adjourned. Thank you.